Hi, MTN doers. So you'll recall that we recently had a session where we talked about the MTN Allyship program. A lot was said about it, but trust me, you haven't had a masterclass like the one we're promising to deliver for you. We have our group president and CEO, Ralph, and he will just take on a few questions just to give us an insight on why the MTN Allyship program. But maybe, Ralph, let me first greet you.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great, and good to be onto this platform.
I'm actually fascinated by the fact that you're sitting here with us talking to a topic on diversity. You're just coming from another board meeting. How do you juggle the two?
Look, it's the tyranny of and. You've got to do everything that's important, and this conversation is obviously a very important one, but I'm not the only one juggling. I think all of us are juggling stuff. And that's the kind of new normal.
No, true. It is the new normal. So during the launch, we had a video. And in the video, you talked about the vision coming from 2021. You touched on the He for She initiative with UN Women. And then you built on that and came up with a whole MTN strategy on D&I. Why He for She? What stood out for you to make you as Group CEO feel that I also want to play a role as MTN and drive change in the lives of women within the company and externally?
Yeah, look, at the core, He for She is really about the power of diversity, our ability to tap into what diversity has to offer us, and to use that to an unfair advantage. So when you think about diversity in its fullest form, one of the things you've got to think about is gender.
Yes.
You know, do we have the right mix of men and women from the leadership level all the way throughout the organization? And you know, the clear answer was we didn't at that time, and it's still a work in progress as we speak today. So when the He for She opportunity came, we said, look, we're going to sign up. We know it puts us out there because we have to make public commitments about what we're going to try and drive over the next while. We raised, amongst other things, dealing with pay disparity. Why should women earn less than men doing the same job? We said that doesn't make sense. We've got to correct that. Do we have sufficient representation in women at the leadership level? Yes, we're making progress, through other levels, but at Exco and even at the board, we don't have that. And we're a technology company. Where are the women in tech? And therefore, we said across a series of areas, we're going to commit ourselves, put us out there, so people can judge us externally as well as internally. And that's why we really pushed out for this, because at the end of the day, we're going to end up with an unfair advantage because we have sufficient female representation across the business, and that's something very difficult to replicate. And we think it's the right thing for MTN.
No, and it is. And as the main champion for the MTN Allyship program, what made you think around that program? What made you, or when was the Bob Light moment that let's not leave our men behind, let's create an initiative and sort of drive it from that perspective as well?
Look, in a previous life, in an organization I worked for before I joined MTN, we did have the kind of He for She, platform and programs. It was actually quite structured there, where we would identify the high potential. We used to call them the hypos in that organization, and we would identify every year a certain number of women across the organization, from very senior and throughout the whole organization, and had very targeted mentorship. And so when I was there, let's be clear, I was at Old Mutual then, and I was mentoring somebody who was at Nedbank. She's now on the Nedbank Exco. And I saw the power of that then, that it creates the opportunity and space. And also the other thing it does is also create the opportunity for what I call reverse mentoring. Somebody who is actually helping you see the organization through a different lens than the one you have of the organization. So for me, it became something that was for me an interesting way of understanding what was happening organizationally. Now at MTN, we've put ourselves out there. We've partnered with UN Women, so we are, getting judged by kind of global standards in the way that we are making progress. But there's still much to be done, and much to be done in terms of formalizing, some of this kind of allyship and mentorship more broadly across the organization.
Yeah, that's wonderful. In fact, one of the questions that then came up in that session from one of the MTNers was, then how do you approach the allyship program? And I'm hearing you talk about mentorship. They were trying to say, can it be a two-way relationship? Can I, as a woman, go and say, please be my ally, sort of be a coach or a mentor so that I grow in my journey and sort of take guidance from my ally?
No, obviously, and there are many ways to do the mentorship across organized. There's no one size fits all.
Sure.
We are identifying, as I mentioned, for example, women in tech is an area. Women leaders rising up across our business. The Rising Leaders platform that creates also an opportunity for engagement. There's still some work to be done, and we are engaging. With Paul and the team around how do we structure it better in a way that people don't feel excluded, because sometimes if you drive these initiatives, people say, but how come Marina has an ally, we kind of know about the ally, why don't I have it?
Yeah.
And the best way to do it is actually to have it much more structured as part of personal and leadership development more broadly. But these are topics that we're obviously very engaged in. I've often said to people the best form of mentoring, is often when you find somebody who you think you can learn from, to tap them on the shoulder and say, listen, I think I can learn. These are the things I want to learn, and within the context of the organization, provide that. So there's formal and informal ways of mentoring and development and grow. And I think both work. It doesn't always have to be waiting for the formal one. So MTNers shouldn't wait for big pronouncements from the group HR team.
Yeah.
We can do that within the context of the organization as it currently is configured.
Yeah, MTNers shouldn't wait. And I think for me, that's where I would double underline it and bold it to the women that are listening. Do not wait. At some point, you just need to stand up, walk to the person and just say, I want to learn from you. Can you be my ally? So you touched on the leaving some people behind, and the question that I'm trying to frame, Ralph, is how do you ensure that our men don't then feel like you are over-focusing or giving attention or preferential treatment to women to a point where they feel like we don't matter anymore, we're not part of the vision? So how do you balance that? It does sound like a delicate task, but it also just requires that you be intentional around balancing it. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, you put the word which to have the intentions, out there, the balancing, and also a much broader perspective. So I had one of the senior males say to me a few weeks ago and says, thank God there's still space for men. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you just appointed Monza, CEO of South Sudan, and you appointed Stephen because 2 years ago or thereabouts, you appointed 3 female CEOs all at the same time. And I said, it's not to be exclusionary. It's coming back to the discussion we had at the beginning. It's an and. We have to do all of these things. But we also need to recognize that, up to the point where we are today, there are so many more hurdles for women to overcome, to be able to succeed, within the context of their own careers, and even at a place like MTN. MTN, in many regards, is a very modern and a company that's out there and very progressive. But having said that, we still have a lot to do. We still have to improve the representation of women on boards, at the executive level and so forth. So that job is not done. So we're always having to kind of balance, what we're doing. And we are unashamedly at the moment kind of over-indexing, if you want that, to use that word, on trying to get as many female hires as we can. It doesn't mean every hire is going to be a woman. But we have the intentionality to say, look, if there are these roles, how can we ultimately end up with women in these roles? How can we create opportunities for them to prosper and grow? So, to your question that, about the men very included, as I said, when we look at the stats, it says actually there's still a lot of enormous opportunity for men. So it's an and so there is no exclusion. It's one of being comprehensive and understanding that diversity is going to give us the unfair advantage as MTN over time.
Sure. And so Ralph, maybe give me an example of a scenario where you saw a woman look prepared for an opportunity to be taken to the next level? Because one of the comments we got is that even as women, we're not networking enough. We're not visible.
Yeah.
It is even hard to find us. So what examples and possibly advice would you give to the women to say, be available, what can I do more practically so that I'm visible?
Look, I've said this before, and I think on previous platforms on Women's Day, maybe even 2 years ago, and I'll repeat what I said is, I often see men kind of 60% ready for the job, so there's a lot more still to be done. They put their hand up and say, look, I would like to take on this job. I'm going to be honest with you that I still think I have A, B, and C still to be done in terms of my ability to be fully. But if I have help from X, Y, Z, I think I'll get there. And women tend to be, and I think this is a point that's proven by data, will put their hand up when they know that they're perfectly ready. And in life, perfect readiness doesn't never happen. So to your question, I always say, women must put their hands up earlier and clarify the things that they believe that they need. I'm seeing a lot more of that, to be honest, and that's very encouraging. And creating supportive networks. And it's not networks just, in one dimension. It's trying to create a multi-layered network that can support them. And some of that network would be male colleagues or female colleagues. It just needs to be a network of support, when the opportunities come. So, my encouragement is to women is put your hands up, go for it, seek support, be open and transparent, and often you find, it may be a controversial statement, but generally women get the job better done than men. But I'm sure some men will contest that.
Yes, they will.
They will contest that. But to me, the real thing is, put yourself out there a lot more.
Yeah. Wow. Now let's put ourselves out there more as women. I'm taking on that challenge as well, Ralph. I'm going to look at spaces where I can just show up and say, I may not know it all, but I'm going to try this. And my final question, so we've launched the MTN Male Allyship program. As the visionary behind it, what would you wish to see maybe 2 years from now as it pertains to our brothers in MTN taking up on the rallying call that you are making, that be an ally, stand up, speak for women issues, be there for a woman that needs a stronger, a powerful voice, open doors for women, encourage women. So what would you wish to see if you're sitting 2 years from now and looking back?
I look back to the commitments we've made really around he for she, because that I think encapsulates what I would like to see. Firstly, we're seeing an increase in diversity, more women in senior leadership, or actually all throughout the echelons of leadership that we have. That to me would be very satisfying to see us achieve that. We've really dealt with the pay disparity. I think the pay disparity issue, same work, same pay. That's how it should be. And if there are areas that we haven't fully resolved, we should resolve them. I think we have materially dealt with the issues that we faced 2 years ago. So 2 years hence, we should have really completed that. We're a technology company. Would love to see women in tech, much closer to 30%. I know in the early 20s, we're much higher than, let's say, even some of the global tech companies who we know, many of them, much bigger than us, are kind of below 20 in terms of the women who are actually involved in technology. And as you say, just see increasingly women rise through the organization, and there being a sense in MTN that women feel they belong. This whole point of belonging is something I've spoken about before. People who feel they belong, ultimately succeed. If there's no space, no place where people go and succeed if they don't have a feeling of belonging. So that is much more difficult to quantify, but I think you'll feel the sense, and maybe in the centimeter survey, we'll pick that up, where we have a sense that women feel that if I'm at MTN, I can just be myself. I don't have to be anybody else. By being myself, I bring the best version of me. The best version of me, empowers MTN's diversity, gives MTN this edge, this unique advantage, where women can thrive at MTN more than they can thrive at any other organization. I think if we see those things, I think we're making good progress.
Yeah, we definitely are making good progress. And thank you so much, Ralph, for taking the time for this masterclass.
Thank you.
As the chief champion of the MTN Men's Allyship program. The rallying call is still out there. And as said, you don't have to do grand gestures. It's in the small things that you can do on a daily basis to just make space for the women that are around you in the workplace and even in your own private life, even in society. Go out there and be the change that you want to see.